Welcome to our four-part live stream series, Improving Health in Indian Country. This is part one of the series. Our mouths are gateways to good health, how dental care impacts our well-being. Last month, I had the honor to attend the Society of American Indian Dentists conference in Albuquerque, New Mexico. At the conference, I interviewed some dental students who are Native American on their way to become a dentist, and actually some new dentists who are Native American.
Thank you to our platinum sponsor, the American Dental Association, for making this live stream possible.
Today's program will highlight some of the questions and answers that I asked those new dentists and the dental students. So please enjoy.
So my journey to becoming a dentist, it started out the very cliche way. In the orthodontist office, I had really bad teeth growing up, like ortho work. So starting at the age of 6 to 17, I had metal in my mouth. So I had the palate expander, I had all the retainers, and then braces for 2.5 years. And that just kind of piqued my interest. But then going to college and being able to participate in programs like Louisiana Mission of Mercy, which is a huge dental clinic that provides over like $2 million worth of service. You just saw patients waiting in line for 6 hours just to get a tooth pulled that was massively like infected, like pus coming out of the gums and everything, just to get a tooth pulled because they could not afford care at any of our facilities or dental offices around. And that just kind of shocked me that we're still in this that we're still having this like disparity in dentistry, and also just reminded me of my dad and how he grew up in his family, just like dental care wasn't important. But not only was it not important, they weren't able to afford it anyways. He has 6 siblings and his parents were always working, so they were never going to be able to take him to the dental office as well. So that kind of changed my focus on the aesthetics of dentistry to kind of focusing more on just the overall health in dentistry, like just preventing caries, preventing these, infections, and just trying to get people to have, mobility and be able to chew and eat. And that just kind of solidified my choice into going into dentistry.
It wasn't later on and in my education path that I had decided to pursue dentistry. I was predominantly on a pre-medicine pathway, and I had an interaction with a fellow Yakima dentist, and he said I should look into dentistry. And I started volunteering within the University of Washington Dental School, working as a receptionist in the pediatric office, also shadowing some of the faculty prosthodontists that are within the dental school. And I just fell in love with it. I appreciated the care that they were giving, and I enjoyed working with my hands. I loved making jewelry. I was an artist as a child, and so I saw the work that they did and how rewarding it was, and I fell in love with it and applied.
I decided to become a dentist because I had some very traumatic experiences at the Indian Health Services on my reservation in Fort Belknap. Experiences that just like traumatized me, and I had like my mom, my grandma, and my dad all pull me out of the dental chair like 3 different times because I was crying and in so much pain when I was receiving treatment as a child. And then I went to a private practice dental office when I was a little bit older in Billings, Montana, and it was like painless. I didn't feel anything. They listened to me. They treated me like a person, and they actually, listened to me. And they didn't just call me like a baby because I was younger, And it just made me realize at that moment that you could provide dentistry and do such amazing things with your hands, and just do something cool for a community that isn't used to being heard and being listened to and receiving the help that they need. So I kind of came to the realization that no one's going to come and help us. We have to do it ourselves. So I decided that I wanted to be a dentist for that purpose. My motivation factor to become a dentist was never about finances. I never thought about how much I was going to make, how much I was going to get paid. It was just about helping the community, because I just can remember how traumatizing it was to be in that dental chair, and I just want to be able to give back. It doesn't really matter about the money. That's not really what I do this for. I do it to just help a community that needs help, and that's just like my motivational factor has always been just helping my community and helping other communities like mine, and figuring out ways I can do that.
I really liked that I could use my hands, be hands-on. I didn't want to just sit and be alone either. I'm very social, so I liked that I'd get to talk to my patient a ton, especially I think I'm funny, so I get to tell my jokes while they can't, they just have to like take it. So I liked that. I like the camaraderie. I love working with other people, so I love the relationship between assistants and dentists. Yeah.
I am a first generation college student. When I was about 16 years old, I got home from a dental visit and I was like, I think I really want to do that. At that point in time, I started working towards becoming a dentist. When I graduated high school, I went to junior college because I was super into sports and I wanted to play basketball. So I continued playing basketball. I attended junior college to do that. And when I got there, they enrolled me in hygiene courses. I was like, no, pre-dental. I want to go to dental school. I want to be a dentist. And I was so insulted that they had placed me into this hygiene prerequisites. And I actually had to go and advocate for myself and get into the science courses I needed for dental school. When I became a dental student, I saw all these issues and I wanted to make it easier for others. I wanted to share all that knowledge with the next group of students behind us.
So I was a school teacher for 7 years. I taught physical education and health, and I coached sports in the afternoons. And I really enjoyed doing that. I enjoyed teaching my classes. I enjoyed working with my students and my athletes. And it was something that I felt a lot of passion for. And I still feel that education opens the doors to a lot of opportunity in life. And for me, as much as I enjoyed teaching, I wanted to do something a little bit more. I've always felt a strong passion for oral health care. And I've always liked the idea of going to dentistry. And I was probably intimidated by just the mountain that you have to climb to get there. And it's a long road. I didn't know anything about it, but I decided at one point in my life that if I was going to get into dentistry, that I might as well go for it. There's a lot of programs out there that support students, especially Native American students, in getting into dental school. And I thought, I'm going to just do my best. If I make it, great. If I don't make it, then at least I tried. And so I decided to just do my best and give it everything I had. And my wife supported me in this decision. And so we decided to make a career change in life. And I've really enjoyed it since getting into practice and having the opportunity to actually do dentistry and build a patient pool and a community that I have the opportunity to love and to serve has been very fulfilling for me. And I see the difference that it makes in people's lives when they come and see a dentist that they trust, somebody that they know is from their community, somebody that they can connect and relate to. And for me, it's been a very fulfilling part of my life. It's been a goal that's taken a lot of years to accomplish. And it's not something that happens overnight. It's not a quick thing. It's a marathon that takes a lot of endurance, that takes a lot of overcoming challenges. But that's what I've always taught my students, and that's what I've always taught my athletes, is that when you deal with something difficult, it helps you to grow and to get better. And that's what my journey and my path has been. That's brought me to the point that I have the opportunity to practice dentistry in the Four Corners area. And all of the challenges that I've dealt with, I feel like has only made me a better person. It's made me stronger, and it's helped me to understand and just relate to people as they come and they share with me the challenges that they have in life. We all have different challenges and different trials that we have to overcome. And as we come together and we help each other, that's how, as a community, we can all rise to be better.
All right, so I am 41 and I was a stay-at-home mom for about 12 years. The first time I went to college was in 1999, and I got an associate's degree in generals because I was pretty lost. I didn't know what I should do or become, but I valued education, so I got an associate's degree. Then I started having children, and because I still felt like there was some place that I needed to go, I stayed in education as much as I could, being a mom, which put me in a few classes a year. And I think I went through. Let's see, I started in engineering, and then I went to archaeology, and then anthropology. Then I went to criminal justice. Finally, ended up in environmental science. And by the time my youngest was in kindergarten, I decided that it was time to buckle down and make a decision. So at the time, I lived in Lawrence, Kansas, and I went to Haskell Indian Nations University. And I really liked the sciences. And so the only science degree that they have there, 4-year degree, is environmental science, which, I mean, I love environmental science. And so I was fine with that. I still didn't know if there was any other direction that I was going to be going. So I finished, or I was in my senior year. Okay, let's put it this way. I was in my senior year, realized I'm good at this. I'm good at science. I'm good at learning. I'm good at working with people, but I felt like I still needed to go further. So I wanted to go into healthcare, which Haskell didn't have any classes for healthcare. So I knew I was going to have to figure out a creative path for me to do. And so I was looking at medical schools, and a professor that I really admired suggested dentistry. He knew that, in the past, one of my hobbies was making jewelry. He suggested dentistry. He's like, you're really good with people. You work really well with your hands. You're a great scientist. Have you ever thought about this? I was like, well, not seriously. I mean, that's a lot of spit every day. So he was like, you should. And there was a representative from UMKC coming to the school to give a little introduction to dentistry as a career for a minority population. And he was like, you need to go to that. I said, okay, I'll go. I promise. So I went, thinking that I was just fulfilling a promise to my mentor. And I was blown away. It was like, finally, I had found my path. It was just like, after how many years? I think it was like 17 years in college at that point. I was like, this is where I'm supposed to go. This is where I'm supposed to be.
Have kind of a non-traditional route when it comes to dentistry. I had a friend who moved into the area when I was 13, and his father was an oral maxillofacial surgeon. And I met him, and he told me about the opportunities to be in IHS, and he had me come into the clinic to shadow him when I was a junior in high school. I went in and I thought, well, this doesn't look too bad. I suppose I could do it. And so I decided at that point I was going to be a dentist. Fast forward a couple years in college, and the sciences were a lot more difficult than I anticipated. And so I ended up graduating and taking a commission in the United States Army as a Army pilot, Blackhawks. I flew Blackhawks during the war in Afghanistan. Basically took a gap decade to fight the war, and then I came back and did my prerequisites for dental school. And that 10 years in the military, it gave me a lot of time to mature and to get study habits to eventually become a dentist and attend the University of Michigan and be accepted there.
Thank you to our sponsors, our platinum sponsor, the American Dental Association, and our bronze sponsors, the Association of American Indian Physicians, and the Pokagon Band of Potawatomi Indians.
What is the correlation between primary health care and dental care?
So diabetes is a disease of inflammation, and what we see in patients with uncontrolled diabetes or poorly controlled diabetes is difficulty for tissues to respond to foreign contaminants. And sometimes that's just the bugs we got in our mouth already. So oftentimes we see patients with diabetes struggling to combat periodontal disease, which is destruction of the gums and the bone that supports our teeth. And sometimes that can be pretty rampant if it's not kept under control. It all has to do with the high blood sugar in the bloodstream for long periods of time that can kind of alter the proteins and parts of our immune system that can kind of protect us from those things and help our body to recover in a timely and efficient manner. So because periodontal disease can lead to inflammation and because diabetes can lead to inflammation, they kind of go hand in hand in that you need to control both and need to be treated and seen for both to manage both in order to encourage both to be healed.
I believe that the correlation between medical care and dental care, they do relate, because if you're not able to get medical care, I don't see how you can get dental care either. I think a lot of people focus on their health first and then their mouth. Like the mouth, I think, is the most neglected area. So my family, they don't, or my dad specifically, never went to the dentist unless he needed a tooth pulled. And with that, he never went to the doctor either. So unless it was an emergency. So I think it's just about educating, and if they're educated, even at physicians, then they can be educated with their oral hygiene as well with dentists.
Dental care is extremely important in a patient's overall health. There are huge impacts with good oral health and your overall health when it comes to diabetes, your pregnancy, high blood pressure, cardiac disease, and also you want to have good oral health going into any sort of major surgeries. A lot of times they'll ask for dental clearance.
I fully believe that your oral health is a very good indicator of your overall health. Just because if you are, taking care of your oral health and brushing twice a day, flossing, it's usually really general indicator that you're taking care of your overall hygiene and just body, And it really, I just feel like it gives you that confidence to want to really take care of the overall health. And that's why I'm always a big advocate for, teaching children at a young age to, implementing those brushing twice a day, flossing, and just doing those little small steps when they're young, because it builds a lot easier and it doesn't build bad habits. And then you really start to see taking care of your overall body. And it's just the oral health is just a very good indicator, I think, of overall health.
Well, I think it all starts in the mouth, but the mouth leads to everything else. So if you don't take care of your mouth, you're obviously going to have other health issues. But if you have systemic health issues, it's going to affect your oral health as well.
I think that's really true. I think the mouth is the gateway to really good health. Everything you eat, everything you drink, that is important for overall nutrition. It's important for maintaining body composition. It's important that we watch calories and nutritional value when selecting things that people are choosing as part of their diet. Like I mentioned, when people have missing teeth that need to be replaced and haven't been replaced, oftentimes they'll make food choices that are not as healthy. They choose foods that have been refined because they're easier to eat and they don't require as much chewing and mastication that teeth are really used for. And because of that, they're getting a lot of empty calories. They're not getting the fiber they need in their diet. And that just leads to other health side effects that are not going to be good for the patient.
So the integration of primary care with dental care among teens, super important. And the company I'm working for has recently been working to update its software to where our health records can talk to the health records of the primary care physician, and we can see what medications they're on, we can see what they've been prescribed, and we can see their health history, which is super important as a dentist. So because when I see something on their own health history form that doesn't jive with medication or that doesn't jive with their health history, I can question the patient more about it. And this is very important when it comes to such things such as heart medication or diabetes medication. And the population that I work with, I've run across a couple of teens who've had rampant caries, who have been obese, and they are pre-diabetic, and they're on medications that are trying to curb the future cardiac problems and the future diabetes problems. And through interprofessional collaboration between a primary care physician, a dentist, maybe an ear, nose, and throat, or another specialized medical provider, it's a lot easier to get together and work with one another instead of having to get outside medical releases. And for example, I had a patient that just moved to the area, and so they weren't within our medical and dental facilities. And so I had to get a medical clearance for them based on high blood pressure that they had and the medications that they were on. And you think that'd be easy, and generally it is, but sometimes you run into just weird problems like internet connectivity not working. Sometimes at these FQHCs, you don't get reliable internet. Not to say that's the problem that happened to mine, but for ours, we couldn't open our email. They used a different email software and email program to where when we got the attachment, we couldn't open it up. And so we had to go old school and tell them to send us a facsimile, and so we could get the medical clearance. And so interprofessional working together has come a long ways. There's still some hurdles we have to work through, but the more we work together and the more our systems can start talking to each other, the better the better we can provide medical coverage for our patients.
Thank you to our platinum sponsor, the American Dental Association.
Why is integrating these important?
I think it's important in a lot of ways that we integrate oral health with primary care. For one reason, in a lot of situations, if somebody has access to a dentist, they're going to see that dentist twice a year. But even if they have access to a doctor, they might not seek out a doctor unless there's a problem. So when they come into the dental chair and I can screen their blood pressure, I can run a PHQ and screen for mental illness or someone who needs help with counseling or other interventions. Or if I can, remind them that it's time to get an HbA1c reading again to help manage their diabetes. I think that my role as a medical provider is not just limited to looking at teeth, right? And then in the reverse way, I think it is really important for other providers and professionals in the healthcare field to work with us to let us know what we need to look out for. A lot of oral health issues and diseases and manifestations of other diseases kind of work hand in hand. I mean, we can see periodontal disease sometimes before a doctor can see risks of heart disease. Sometimes they can see risks of heart disease before we can see risks of periodontal disease. And that kind of goes hand in hand with a lot of different conditions. So working together as a team to provide the best overall health for our patients is it's not an option. It's just our responsibility.
Where I practice, we are connected to a medical clinic, and we check blood pressure on all of our patients. And that is a huge risk factor when providing dental care. And so a lot of times patients will come in and they have no idea that their blood pressure is high until I have taken it and I have educated them that they need to be seen by their medical provider. And we directly refer them. We even will have them, we'll give them a warm handoff over to medical so that they can get that addressed.
I think that as the medical and dental field progresses, as we learn new things, it's constantly progressing. Research is constantly renewing, and there's more things to learn and upgrade. We're learning how all of these things integrate, including dentistry. And for so long throughout dental history, it's always been considered a separate entity. Well, that's fine. But if you think about it, it's a little absurd to think about separating the mouth from the rest of the body's health, when your mouth is literally the first place where nutrition starts. And I don't know if you've ever heard the analogy, but You can't have, let me see if I get this right. A rotten apple ruins the whole barrel, right? Well, if you have problems with your mouth, you're going to have problems with the whole rest of your body because it's literally the start of nutrition. So, if you have bad teeth, that is like direct access to a systemic system that can be vulnerable to bacteria and infection.
What problems have you seen when it comes to Native youth in dental care?
So, among Native youth that I saw in my clinical experience, I would say one of the primary risk factors for dental disease and periodontal disease that I saw was dietary in nature. We call it a karyogenic diet, a high sugar diet, a consistent diet of snacking, things like that that keep the oral microbiome primed for cavities and loss of gum and bone tissue. So primarily dietary, I would say. A lot of energy drinks, sodas, things that are easy to get and are absolutely delicious. So when you have teenagers that are learning how to make those choices for themselves, of course they're going to pick the thing that tastes better, but it's important to educate them on what those risks are, what risks are associated with those kinds of choices. Other things that I noticed that were kind of affecting the teen population more so than others was higher rates of medications like SSRIs that can lead to what studies have shown is increased clenching and grinding, bruxism, so jaw pain, attrition of the teeth that can kind of lead to worn down surfaces and possibly complications with sleep apnea and things like that. On top of that, I would say in later teens, early young adults, more rates of like oral piercings that can kind of affect the teeth surrounding as well as soft tissues. Education is important and critical in those circumstances as well. And then lastly, which has been most surprising for me, I'm pretty young, and I remember being in high school and realizing that it was a time that people didn't really smoke cigarettes anymore. We had kind of moved on from the that's cool aspect of things. But since I've graduated high school, vaping has completely taken over our young adults and teen populations as something that seems safer than cigarettes and is so easy to get and tastes good and has all these cool aspects to it, I guess. But I would see most students ask me if, well, I don't smoke, but I vape. Is that the same? And starting to have those conversations and having to do research myself on what that means and what risks are associated with that. It hasn't been researched a lot yet, just because it's so new. But there's preliminary research that shows us that the risks of vaping can, equate the risks of smoking cigarettes, both for overall and specifically dental health. So I would say all dietary changes, piercings, other medications and physical complications, and vaping are big topics of interest right now when it comes to treating those populations. It really varied a lot. I saw some students who, based on where they lived, almost primarily had better access to care. Some students in active orthodontia with impeccable oral hygiene, but more often than not, a lot of students and patients who may not have had the same care throughout their lives. A lot of students that were getting sealants placed for the first time at 17, or heard for the first time what causes cavities, or what kind of dietary recommendations we could make that would actually really influence their rate of dental decay. A lot of poor oral hygiene, a lot of nutritional guidance to provide. A lot of teenagers these days are drinking a lot of energy drinks and drinking them throughout the day. Maybe not, especially these kids who were at a boarding school learning how to kind of be their own person for the first time. didn't really have the tools to make better dietary choices for themselves. So I had a lot of conversations with them about that and how that not only would affect their dental health, but their overall health. And I think a lot of them were pretty receptive, but were pretty surprised by what we had to offer.
Some of the issues I see in our population or the community that we have at our school is childhood caries. So most of them don't get the education that they need to, like oral health education that they need to prevent cavities. So specifically, like with my family on my dad's side, he was never taught to brush his teeth at night or floss. So just every patient I see who has children, I tell them, make sure you're flossing their teeth, brushing their teeth, because my mother is the only reason I feel like I have good teeth, because she would brush her teeth, fight us to brush our teeth, even if we didn't want to brush our teeth at night. So I think it's just like focusing on the children, but educating the parents to then educate their children.
In regards to my teen patients, a lot of them come in unaware of the long-term ramifications of poor oral health. They are in adult dentition and they're not taking care of their teeth, and they don't understand that over time they are gradually damaging their teeth to non-repair. I have long conversations with my teen patients that you only get one chance with your adult dentition. And so we have conversations about smoking, about their oral health, flossing, brushing, diet habits, including a lot of teens, a lot of caffeine, a lot of sugary beverages, a lot of coffee beverages, and even talking to some of my female teen patients, because they'll say, well, I drink diet soda, talking about the acidity of those beverages and the impacts on their teeth long term, especially if they're sipping them throughout the day, is really important and an emphasis in my practice when dealing with the teenagers.
So teens have easy access to vaping, and it is something that has become very popular. And a lot of my adolescent patients, they like to do it because it's considered cool. And in fact, we don't really know what the full extent of the impacts of vaping on oral health, but we do know that it is very dangerous to developing lungs, and it is the right move to not approve these devices. So they are very harmful to our youth, not just in the mouth, but also systemically.
So I think when it comes to the teenage population, there's a lot of things that they deal with that they are probably unaware of the side effects. When it comes to oral health care, tooth decay is not something that just happens overnight. It's not a quick disease that sets in because of one drink or one meal, but it's something that takes a process. And for teenagers, one thing that a lot of them seem to have the attitude of is that nothing's going to hurt them, nothing's going to bother them. They have this mindset of invincibility where they can do whatever they want and they're going to be fine. And their health is generally pretty good when they're really young like that, and they don't realize the long-term consequences and the long-term side effects of risky behaviors. And so oftentimes teenagers will neglect to brush or floss their teeth because they didn't have any cavities at their last visit, or they won't floss because they don't see any reason for doing so. It hurts their gums. They don't like it. And so it doesn't become a part of their habit in maintaining their oral health care. And so helping them understand long-term what that's going to look like is really important in those teenage years so they can start to develop those good habits at an early age. We see oftentimes in our patient population, once they get to be into their late 20s, early 30s, that's when they can look back and say, hey, I made some poor decisions with my oral health care as a teenager and as a young adult. And that's when they start making changes. At that point, some of them need a lot of treatment. At that point, they've gotten to a point where they may have to lose some teeth, and they may have to look at some more expensive dental treatment options to replace some teeth that have had tooth decay or other forms of disease. And so learning and understanding these things at an early age and and these teenagers understanding the importance of that is something that'll help them long-term have good oral health. That'll help them to keep their teeth so that as they get into their golden years, they'll be able to have good oral health. Another thing that a lot of teenagers seem to be dealing with right now, when it comes to substance abuse, they're curious. They want to try alcohol. They want to try tobacco products. They want to try things that they see their friends doing and experimenting with. And one that we don't have a lot of long-term data with are these e-cigarettes or this vaping, something that is appealing to a lot of teenagers. Their friends do it. There's fun flavors out there that they are interested in trying, and they don't see it as a tobacco product, and so they're not as concerned about it. They don't think that it's gonna cause any of the long-term effects that cancer can cause. And so a lot of teenagers are more open to trying vaping and trying these electronic cigarettes, and they feel like it's a safe option that's not going to affect them. But we're starting to see through a lot of the data that's coming out now, even though it's not long-term, that it's not healthy for them, and that the kids that do use electronic cigarettes are at an increased risk for tooth decay. They also are at an increased risk for a condition known as popcorn lung. And so there are some side effects that we're starting to see as we're getting more and more data come in, and we're seeing more long-term what these products can have as far as overall effect on health. And so it's important to help these teenagers when they come into the dental office and when they come in and see their oral health care provider, to explain and educate them. That way they understand what the risks are. That way they understand what the consequences are going to be if they choose to continue with these habits, and know how it's going to affect their health in the long term. Because they don't see it right away. Teenagers are very short-sighted in a lot of the choices and decisions that they make. And so educating them and helping them to realize that the decisions they make now are going to affect their quality of life in the future, so that they can make better choices and decisions.
So here's what I notice. Drug use is not getting any better. It's just getting worse. And depending on the population you're working in, is the type of drug that you're going to be experiencing in the teenage population. For instance, in Oklahoma, meth is a huge thing, and methamphetamine use has a huge impact on oral health. And it seems like the age of the teens using illicit drugs is getting younger. So I know that my 14-year-old in junior high experiences groups of friends that use drugs. And to me, it staggers me, because I'm like, you're still babies. How did you even get access to this? But if there's a will, there's a way. So I see that still as a huge problem. And I think that there's a lot of organizations that have had great movement, like Say No to Drugs. I think it was that 1990s or something. You still see that kind of around. You see lots of video and media propaganda about, being clean, and that's great. And I hesitate to say that we're making good progress, because now that there is some progress, it seems like they're pulling back. It's like, we don't need to work as hard at this to keep kids off drugs, because we're doing good. And now I think I'm seeing a fallback. It has to be, if drugs are fun to do and, teenagers are kind of stupid, then it's going to be something that they pursue, and it's not going to go away as long as it's available. So you have to hit it hard all the time, forever, until it doesn't exist anymore. I can't see that happening.
A lot of it has to do with their diet and not knowing how what they eat affects their oral health. And it's not only what they eat, but it's how they eat. Meaning, do I sip on a soda all day long? Or do I get a 20-ounce soda and drink it in 2 minutes, and then I only do that at meals? So when I give my dietary counseling, I'll tell them things like, I drink soda. I've never had a cavity. I brush my teeth. Don't sip on it all day. If you want to drink one, fine. Use a straw. And I like to be realistic. If somebody was to tell me I have to do a lifestyle change at 38, I'm kind of like, So I try to give them small baby steps, something that I think and that we can decide on that they can change. For example, I had a patient who would only brush her teeth once every 3 or 4 days. And I said, well, do you think you can start brushing once a day? Let's start something small. And I said, just brush at night with a fluoride toothpaste, and then we'll move on from there. And so it would be nice to say, yeah, we're going to go in there and we're going to change your whole lifestyle. This is going to fix everything. And your credit score is going to go up to 850, but it's really hard for people to change. And so I like to do it in smaller steps, stuff that they can achieve and actually do. And once that they have those small victories, they can continue with a little bit more and more steps every day. And to push that a little further, it's when I say how they eat, and how they take care of their teeth. For example, some people, if they, going back to this example, if they only brush once a day, I'll tell them to brush at night and let the fluoride sit on their teeth throughout the night, as opposed to brushing in the morning and then eating immediately after that and just kind of negating the whole fluoride, making your teeth harder and cleaning your teeth. So
Thank you to our platinum sponsor, the American Dental Association, for making this live stream possible.
What advice would you give a young Native American who wants to become a dentist?
So I'll just say, make sure that dentistry is something you want to do. Shadow general dentist, speak with your general dentist and see what all they provide. I shadowed a couple general dentists, but I mostly worked at an endodontics office. And so all I saw was root canals done all the time. And when the patients would be like, oh, okay, are you putting a crown on? We'd say, no, that's the general dentist. So I actually never saw a crown being placed in my pre-dental years. So, that was my first time experiencing that in dental school, is placing the crown. I would always just say, no, go to your general dentist. So just make sure that this is the field you actually want to be in.
I would encourage the young youth to pursue a career in dentistry. I have loved it. It's very challenging. My journey is very unique, and I love that it's not a straight path, and sometimes you can get off of the path, but as long as you don't give up, there are a lot of people like me that are willing to help and mentor the youth to get them to help them achieve their goals.
So I want to strongly encourage other Native youth, especially those from small rural communities, even if you don't see anyone who looks like you doing things that you dream about doing, to go ahead and just go for it. Don't let fear stand in your way, because there are people that will help you. And, if you work hard and make connections, you can achieve your dreams and obtain that level of success that you desire. Any endeavor that's worth going after will present a journey that can be challenging, but as long as you keep moving forward, even if you have setbacks, you will reach your goals.
I would encourage younger generations to become dentists, but I wouldn't limit them there or, kind of push them down that route. I would let them decide, but I would let them know that, it's possible. You can come from a small reservation, a big reservation, a Native community background, Indigenous background, and you can, accomplish this doctoral dream, become some of these higher career positions that we feel like we don't belong in. I would just let them know that you do belong. You belong just like everyone else does. It's going to take a lot of hard work, but if you put your mind to it, you're strong, just like our ancestors, and you can really do some amazing things just like they have. And, you can pray for the next generation to do amazing things just like you will. And I just encourage them to pursue whatever they dream of, really, and that they can accomplish their dreams.
Just do it. And I think that as I get older, I realize more and more how much each step along my path meant and how it led to the next thing. And I don't even mean my grades. I think I had good grades when I was younger, but not so much in college or necessarily even in dental school. But my ability to build relationships with my faculty and mentors and really communicate well, what I'm interested in, and really make it my own journey mattered more. So just really focusing on figuring out like what you like about dentistry and committing to that, not trying to get caught up in, you don't have to be perfect at everything. Just be good at like what you're good at, and the rest of it will take care of itself.
Learning from others and seeing how other people did it helped me to matriculate my first year. So the dental school admissions process is very tedious. There's lots of steps. There's lots of insider information that you can't really find on the internet. So the first thing is the application is open from June to February. It says the deadline online is February, but a lot of schools send out all of their acceptance letters by December. So if you don't know that and you submit your application in January, you're already out. Things like that with the application process, where we could collaborate and work together, like mentorship network, is what helped me personally get into dental school. I tell them it's the greatest profession ever. And I would encourage them to do it. And I would actually try to give them any tools that I have available to help them to get there. So I think that, the world is theirs. They just have to go get it, and they should do it. I have zero regrets in becoming a dentist, and I love what I do.
So for any young Native Americans that are interested in a career in dentistry, I think that is something to really consider. There are a lot of options in oral health care, whether it be a dental assistant, a dental hygienist, a dentist, or even any of the dental specialty. A lot of the Native American communities struggle with oral health because they don't have a lot of Native American providers. There are a lot of options out there to help Native Americans prepare to get into a dental program. There are a lot of resources out there that help these Native American students, once they're in a dental program, to be successful so that they can matriculate and move on to the next step in life. And there is a big need out there for more Native American dentists. And so any young natives that are interested in that, it can be a scary thought to see the road that you have to go down. Getting into dentistry, it takes a lot of time. It takes a financial commitment, and that can be something that is scary and intimidating for young Native Americans. But there's a lot of help. There's a lot of resources out there. The Society of American Indian Dentists is a great resource with a lot of mentors, with a lot of network connections that can help students get into universities, dental school prep programs, and even find good mentors that can help walk them through that process. If you don't have a family member or a close friend that has been down this road, then you don't know what to expect. You don't know what the challenges are going to be, and it's hard to anticipate what you need to do to really prepare to successfully get into a dental program and then to graduate from that program. That was kind of my experience. I didn't really know any dentists personally before I decided to go to dental school. And so connecting with the Society of American Indian Dentists was a big key that helped me to be successful and helped me to get into a dental school and successfully graduate from that and move on with a dental career where I have opportunity to work with the Native Americans in the community where I live and provide that oral health care for them. And when I get that chance to connect with my patients that are natives, we have that special connection, and they like that. They like to see that, there are natives that they can go see, that they can trust, that understand their culture, that understand their way of life, and we can relate to that. And there's a big need out there for Native Americans to get involved in dentistry in a lot of different ways.
Let me start with my personal philosophy. So one of the things that just frustrates me to no end is the lack of representation of Native peoples in the dentistry profession. There was a study done in 2015. I don't know, there might have been a more recent one done. I haven't looked in a little bit, but there was less than 100 Native dentists across the entire United States. And while there are other minority groups that don't have very good representation, I think the thing that makes Native Americans unique is that you still have quite a few geographically isolated locations where you have tribes that, in order, for whatever reason, to protect their culture, or they're just comfortable there, don't venture off the reservation as much. And so you have some outsider come in and give them dental care. There's not really a rapport. And so it's so important to bring this valuable resource back to the tribes. And the thing that at first I was raging. I was just like, why aren't dental schools admitting more Native Americans? Why is there only 0.2% Native dentists when we're 6% in the whole nation? And I started to do some research, and it wasn't that the dental schools didn't want to admit more Native Americans. They were actually scrambling to find as many as they could because, they can check a little box. But there wasn't any Native Americans prepared for the rigor of dental school. And I realized that you have to start early. You have to start in grade school. You need to show them that this is something you could do. This is something that you could bring back to your mother and your father and your grandparents and your siblings. This is something you could do for your entire tribe. You could go out, get this good thing, bring it back, just for the betterment of everyone. And so that's kind of something that I really look forward to doing, is being a mentor and an example to my tribe and the young kids in general, not just young girls, of course, young girls, but young boys, going out there and saying, I know it can be scary leaving the reservation. It's all you've known. But if you do this and come back with this, look what you can do. And if I can do it, oh, heaven forbid, if I can do it, then anyone can. I don't know if you know this, but I have a disability as well. And so it was another struggle getting to this point. It was another avenue of struggle getting to this point with a disability. So if, I'd like to hear your excuse, as to why you think you can't do this. I got lots of debt to pay off. I had to figure out how to do all this stuff with my disability and how to stay a good mother to my family. So what's your excuse? If this is something that you really want to do, if this is something that, you feel passionate about, then there's no reason that you shouldn't.
The question, I think, almost goes deeper to be, what do you want in life? All right, and let's say a student says, I want to be a dentist. And then I'd say, okay, what's stopping you? What's preventing you from becoming a dentist? Do you know? And they may or may not know, but there's some planning that needs to happen. And there's some preparation that needs to happen. And the first thing they need to do is understand the steps involved in becoming a dentist, where to go to school, how much it costs, what resources there are available. In my case, I joined the military first, and the military paid for my dental education on the back end. So if a student feels like money is an issue, we can get around that. University of Michigan will pay for the full tuition for Native students to go to dental school there. They also gave me grants. They also, the U.S. Army gave me stipends while I was in dental school. I also worked 2 jobs when I was in dental school. I taught a class in ROTC, and then I worked as a dental assistant. And I had 2 kids while I was in dental school. So there's a lot of this go get it doneness, I think, has a lot of cultural roots that I believe is being lost on the youth these days. And for me, that was my dad teaching me to get up at 5 a.m. to go run 5 miles to stay healthy, you know. And I have another doc that's coming here, and we used to get up at 4:30 in the morning to go work out at the high school gym, and then we'd do an early morning course at 6:30, and then we would go to school, and then we would do our afternoon athletics. And I think a lot of this stems from discipline. It stems from going out and doing what other people won't do. My wife has said this about me: Natani, you're not the smartest, you're not the most handsome, but you'll work harder than anybody else, and you never quit. And I feel like this next generation is having a hard time reconciling, who am I? What is the media telling me I am? What is my high school teacher telling me who I am? When I was in 5th grade, I had this teacher who told me, you are the worst student I've had. You're so smart and you waste all your time and you do this, you're the worst leader. And since then, at that time, you know, I thought I took that, internalized it, and it really hurt me as a 10-year-old kid. And I thought, man, I guess that's what I am. That's my worth. But I took that and I said, watch this. And so from that point forward, I started, you know, I got my Eagle Scout. I went and did the hardest things I could in everything that I did, and learned 5 languages, lived in Japan for 2 years, lived in Korea for 2.5 years, you know, fought in the war in Afghanistan. And I was a commander in the United States Army and commanded 367 people. And this is going to sound petty, but I looked him up 2 weeks ago to call him and say, look what I did. And he passed away last year. But all this goes to say that we have these people in our lives that will say you can't do it, that you're the worst, that you have no worth. And I wonder how many people he's negatively affected in their lives because he said stuff like that. And I wanted to tell that to him, that he really could have hurt these Native students, because I lived near the reservation. But I never got the opportunity to. And so for me, if I could say to students, yes, you can do it. You're in America. You won the lottery. People want to pay for you to go to college. People want you to be a dentist. People want you to work for them. People want your non-traditional way of thinking. People want you to represent your people in the professional world. But nobody tells them that. Nobody says you can do it. But I'm here saying to them, yes, you can. You can do it. I've done it. I'm nothing special. All you got to do, and I say all you got to do, but just don't quit. The actual title of the book I'm writing is called Failing to Success. I've failed so many times in my life. But I learned from these mistakes and I keep moving forward. I tell my kids when you know they get beat down and they feel like life is beating them down, do they just lay there and just moan and groan and wait for somebody to pick them up? Or do they get up and dust themselves off and continue forward? And I said, you may have to have somebody come help you. You may need to lay down there for a little bit to catch your breath. But the expectation I have as your father is that you get up and that you continue forward and that you never quit. And that's kind of the genesis behind this book that I'm writing is, and I don't know if it'll ever get published, and it might just be something I read for my posterity, is, yeah, you can do it. People will tell you no. And it's not going to be easy, and you're going to fail. And it's okay to fail. It's okay to fail. Just keep trying.
We want to take a break and thank the sponsors that made this live stream possible. Thank you to our platinum sponsor, the American Dental Association, and our health initiative sponsors, RX Destroyer, the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, and the National Institute for Healthcare Management Foundation. Chimigwech.
Thank you for watching today's live stream. Next month on August 25th, we'll have another segment, Improving Health in Indian Country. Please join us then.
If you appreciate what we do here at Native News Online, we invite you to donate to support our continued work covering Indian Country. We also want to invite you to subscribe to our daily newsletter. You can scan both of these codes with your smartphone or go to the link located below this video to donate today. We greatly appreciate your support. And just as a reminder, please follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Chimigwet.